All right, now I can start seeing participants.
Now we have to watch what we're talking about because everybody will be able to read it back. Hello, everybody. You can't see this yet. This is for all the people that are watching later.
I don't know. Can people see it yet?
Well, it's
Yes,
said it started recording.
Yes, can you see? Can you see us? Can you see us? Yes, look at that. Tell us where you're tuning in from. Both see and hear. Marvelous.
We've gone live early. How is that ever possible? How is that ever possible?
How can we ever go live early, Garry? What have we done? Well, we've got
no, I'm not going to say it. I'll say it at the end. I'm not tempting fate.
Germany. Teresa's here from Germany. Hello, we can see you. Czech Republic. Hi, Brussels, Belgium, Seattle, Frankfurt, Illinois, Germany again.
OMG.
New Zealand. Bella, it must be early. Rub your eyes. Bella Clark from New Zealand. It must be very, very early.
4 or 5 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand, is it not?
It's got to be early, isn't it? Sue Kemp is from North Devon. Tanya's here. Hello, Tanya. That's a familiar name. I know that from the UK. Judy Sooty's from Canada. Bude, Dominic, Heather Deutsch from Canada. I can see you, says Kathy from Scotland. I know who you are, says Kathy from Scotland. I know who that is. That's one of our students, Garry.
Oh,
Bahrain.
Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Gosh, what's it like in Bahrain right now? Yorkshire, Germany, Aberdeen. Hi, everyone. Hi, Rachel. Australia. Hello. Again, rub your eyes. Wakey, wakey. Nice cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Belle says it's 8 a.m. Oh, that's not too bad, actually, Garry. That's 12, exactly 12 hours from us in France. Canada, Shetland.
Was that in New Zealand, was it?
Yeah, that was Bella in New Zealand. Andorra, Alberta, Mallorca. Hello, everyone. Helen Duncan's here. Hello. Some familiar names, Garry. Can you spot some familiar names? Teresa's here from Sweden.
Oh, Teresa, I'm good. Got a very happy horse after the move. Oh, well done, Kathy. I was thinking about you because I'm sure I think your horse moved this weekend. I was thinking of you.
Well done, Kathy. Hello from the Peak District.
Done.
Vanya's here. She's joining us from France. That's where we are, folks. We're from France today. Jane from France.
We've got Jane Savage.
Oh, hi, Jane.
From near the Meuse. Good to have you here, Jane.
It's going to be great with you guys because many of you that are coming in and tuning in tonight, we've had well over 500 people register for this webinar, haven't we, Garry? It's been very popular. And so a lot of you, I know, we're going to get used to seeing you, and we're going to there's going to be a lot of faces, well, a lot of names that we're going to be seeing. So we've got Miki from Holland, Angelina from Denmark, Mississippi. Oh, there's a Denmark in Mississippi. Oh, I didn't know that. Hello from Greg Glendale. Hello, Greg. Vienne in France. Oh, we're from the Vienne. Who's that? Angela Scott. We're in the Vienne as well. Hello, Angela. We're like right next door to each other.
That might be Angela that that might be Angela that I trim for. I'm not sure. The thing is, I don't know her surname, so it might be Angela Scott. It might not.
Arizona. Bella says, is there going to be a replay? Yes. Now we're just going to talk for a couple of minutes while people start coming in, because it is only 2 minutes past. How crazy is that? We're so on time today. But so we're going to talk for a little bit of time. But yes, there is going to be a replay. We are recording. Let me have a look. Yes, it says recording in the top left-hand corner. Thank goodness. For a minute.
Thank goodness.
So we're going to recording it set for everybody that's registered, because I know that quite a lot of people emailed us saying can't make it, it's Mother's Day in the UK, or I'm going out to dinner or lunch or wherever. So yes, if you're registered, you get the replay, and so all you guys get the replay too. So I know that some of you aren't going to be able to stay to the end, and if that's the case, you might miss out on something rather amazing. But don't worry about that. You'll get the replay. No, Angela says no, Garry, you don't trim for me yet.
Oh,
Angela, another Angela from Sweden, Portsoy in Aberdeenshire. I said Arizona, didn't I? Absolutely brilliant. You keep coming in and telling us where you are calling us from or joining us from. Kathy from Virginia. It's brilliant, isn't it, Garry? We have all these people from all over the world and they're all coming here to listen to us rabbit on.
It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
It is a bit overwhelming, but we've got kind of, we're getting a bit used to it now, aren't we? They are going to love it. They are going to love it. They are going to love it. I can see Michelle Lewis, Petra from hello, Petra. Good to see you. Or, well, see your name. Hello. Not so sunny England, says Michelle Lewis. Bethan's here. Hi, Bethan from Goresworth Track Livery. She's here from the UK. I can see you, but I can't.
Hi, Bethan.
I'm sure. Bethan, sort your sort your jobbies out, because I think everybody else can hear us. Hi from Worcestershire. Margaret from Arizona. Hello from Wakefield. Hello from Cornwall. They're all coming in. They're all coming in. Brilliant. Now, tonight, Garry. Hang on, Naomi from Portugal. Tonight, Garry, what are we talking about tonight? What is our topic of our webinar tonight?
The correct trim.
That's right. Now,
I think we've got a bit of a lesson coming up, haven't we?
You have got a bit of a lesson coming up, and it's a bit of a history lesson as well. But and the thing is, people will be tuning in, won't they? Because they'll be desperate for me to tell them exactly how to trim. Well, I'm going to be giving you the landmarks and we're going to be talking about it. And I know that you guys are going to have a lot of questions, because you will have, we just know it. And if you have got questions, there's two kind of ways you can do it. You can either put your question in the chat, and when you do type your chat, make sure that you have the everyone bit there, so that when you're chatting and you're putting your chat up, everybody can see it. You can also raise your hand, and there's so many of you raising your hand right now. And you can also raise your hand.
I can't see that, I don't think.
Yeah, that's in the participant.
I can see how to raise my hand, but I don't need to.
No, so you can raise your hand. I hope, try not to ignore you. And you can also go into the Q&A box. There's a Q&A box on your little bit of panel, control panel thing, and you can write a question in the Q&A if you're like, they've missed my question. Put it in the Q&A and we'll try not to miss it. But we will be watching it all the way through. Gary's going to be monitoring it while I'm doing my little lesson. And there are quite a few of our HMB Pro students watching as well. Okay. Michelle Lewis says, hello from Denmark, says, Lisa Schaefer. From Hereford, says Charlotte Lee. Stephanie Trado says, hi from Florida. In Florida right now. Caroline Hodgkins says hello.
There.
Hello from Leicestershire. People are coming in all the time. All right. I think, Garry, that we'd better crack on with it. Otherwise, we're going to bore everybody to death with our rambling. So I am going to share my screen. Are we ready? Hopefully, we should be able to still hear you, Garry, when you talk. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Portion of my screen. Come on, Zoom. You can do it. Hey, what can you see?
Yes, we can see it. It's all good.
Can you see that? Is that all good? Do you like that?
Yeah, there's these funny cartoon characters. A couple of people that keep waffling on.
They're our friends, those cartoon characters.
They are. They strike a similar resemblance.
Yes, mine's a little bit better looking than me. I don't know about you, you're quite great. So now listen to me, guys. Can you see us, or can you just see the screen? Let me know what you can see. Can you see Garry and I in picture, or can you just see what I'm sharing? Let me know. See the screen and you both. Lovely. Marvelous. That's fantastic.
Perfect.
Both. Yes. Lovely. Right. Are you ready? La, 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 la. Now, good. Everybody can see us both. Screen and voice work. Screen and the person talking. Thank you very much. Right. Marvelous. We're going to crack on. Now, hello. I am Lindsay Setchell, and this is
Hi, I'm Garry Hinton.
And we are the co-founders of the Hoofing Marvellous International School of Horse and Hoof Care. You may or may not have heard of Hoofing Marvellous on the internet. We do occasionally stir up a bit of a storm, but that's okay, because what we like to do is start debate, start conversation. And tonight, it'll probably be exactly that. We'll definitely be having quite a bit of conversation with this topic that we're going to be going through. Now, this is our first one in our free webinar lessons, and the rest of the webinar lessons you can find and you can register on the website, can't you, Garry?
You can. And the website is school.hmi.com. I had to think then. I just type it.
You did. Now, Garry and I have been around for quite a long time, but we are now launching our online training, because we now have our online training school. So we have all of that. And yeah, do you know what? Should we just get on with it, Garry?
Let's get on with the lesson. We can talk all about that at the end.
All right. Okay. So who is HMIS? Well, we are the Hoofing Marvellous International School of Horse and Hoof Care. And that's my dogs barking in the background. Just animals. You can't trust them, can you? And we teach naturally balanced horse and hoof care. Naturally balanced horse and hoof care, because we follow nature's hoof. And more on that as we go along. We're all over the world. We teach all over the world, online and virtually. And soon we're going to be teaching all over the world in person, which is a bit exciting, because we're going to be traveling to other countries to bring our very, very incredibly popular in-person workshops, and also to be doing our training camps, because we have HMB pros coming to us, or we're going to be teaching barefoot specialists all over the world, which is very exciting. And how? Well, we do it in person and we do it online. And this is part of our online, I don't know, gift to you, that we want to do these free webinars, because we love it. We like the sound of our own voice, and we love talking to people from all over the world, don't we, Garry?
We do. We get a bit of a buzz from it.
We do. And Garry and I are a bit of a double act on Barefoot Live, which is our little private group on Facebook, where we interview people from the horse world all over the world. And we do some lessons too that are private lessons. But tonight we are giving you a lesson completely free. So our website, just to reiterate, is www. Oh my God, I shouldn't say that anymore. Nobody says www. anymore, honestly. Schoolhmi.com.
I think that's because we're old.
It is because we're old. If you put in HMI school, which is the logical thing to do, you will come up with some bizarre dietary food website, which isn't us. So it's schoolhmi.com, and it's kind of all orange, because we like orange, and that is where you will find us. So are you ready? Come on, give us a thumbs up if you're ready for this webinar. Let's see it.
Let's go for it.
Are you engaged? Come on, give us a thumbs up. We want to see those thumbs, or even that, I don't know, which that, we've got those as well, haven't we? Okay, here they come. Or
even a wave, whatever you like.
Right, are you ready? Let's get into it. Are you ready, Garry?
Go.
Okay, so how to understand the correct trim for your horse, pony, or donkey, by Garry and I from the HM International School of Horse and Hoof Care. Now, we thought we'd start our free webinar series with the correct trim, because you kind of have to go back to basics to know that before we can really talk about everything else, which is diet, management, gut, and all of those sorts of things. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what are the webinar aims for this webinar? We're going to be understanding the equine hoof, because it's important that we really do understand it. We're going to be learning from the genus of equus. That's important. We're going to be understanding what natural hoof care actually is, natural horse and hoof care. And we're going to be looking at the foundation of nature's trim, and why we trim and why we do it. And we're going to look at a few differences between equus species. So just before we move on, look at that foot there on the right. Can you see that foot there, Garry?
Yep. Clear as a bell.
Yeah, clear as a bell. Now that is a pretty natural foot. It isn't a wild horse. It is a domesticated horse. But how many of you watching this tonight look at that foot and go, oh, the heels are too low? How many of you, come on, be honest. Tell me if you think the heels are too low. People are raising their hand. Garry, I'm going to leave you to monitor that. How many people think that the heels on that horse are too long? And they're all going, oh my God, that's a trick question. I'm not going to put myself out there. Joanne Zollner was thinking that. Regina Giselle is going a tad. Greg Glendale says heels are just right. Michelle Lewis is giving us a bit of a kiss and that.
I think that's not sure.
She probably know what's coming. Come on, what do you think? There's over 100 of you in this webinar right now. Now Darlene says they're underrun, Garry. Now, isn't that interesting?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because people conflate low with underrun. And I hope we can kind of talk about that a little bit more later. Tanya says it's just like my old thoroughbreds foot. Gail says, I thought they looked too low. Shari says, I think it's beautiful. Erin says, agree, underrun. Angela Brummett says, heels are short and tubers are bent under. You see, look at this, Garry. It's crazy, isn't it? We have, not that you're
so
crazy.
Many opinions.
Everybody's got an opinion, right? So how do we squash these opinions? How do we take opinion and turn it into fact? Because that is really what we're all about, isn't it? Dell says perfect. Jane says, can I see underneath? No, you can't. Alison Ainsley says, nice digital cushion. All right, now let's turn those opinions into fact. But in order for me to do that, folks, we're going to have to start from the hoof and then go back in time and then come forward again. So let's just start from the equine hoof. Now this hoof here, hang on, I need to move my chat box so that I can see stuff. Where are you, Garry? I'm going to put you over there. So now I'm going to be teaching you to suck eggs a little bit. And I do apologize about that. And that suck eggs, I don't know if people use it in other languages, in other countries, but suck eggs.
You might have to explain that.
Yeah, basically, I could be teaching many of you what you already know. And I know that many of you will know what I'm about to show you, but it is important that we're all basically on the same page, the same level playing field before we go any further, because as you've already seen, there's already quite a lot of opinion and confusion. So let's make sure we're all on the same playing field, because fundamentally, if we don't understand the form of the hoof and how this relates to function, then, well, there's going to be misconceptions creeping in all the way along. And so for this purpose, I'm going to show you one of the cadaver hooves that we've had on one of our workshops, and we'll be referring back to this hoof periodically. So take a little look at this. This is quite cool. Get off that. I don't want you to do that. There we go. If I just do this, and before I do that, see, look how excited you all were then. No, you have to wait. So before I
reckon they're impressed.
I reveal what's inside this foot. Before I reveal what's inside this foot, let's have a few words about this foot. Well, it was shod. Let's see some nail holes. Yeah, we could see that. It was trimmed by one of our students who is fairly new. So we've got a few raspy marks going on there. Not too bad. They're just little raspy marks. We have some faint rings, which is showing us that periodically over time, this hoof, or the horse that was attached to this hoof, would probably had been going through a few little minor dietary disturbances, but that's okay. In general, Garry, of many of the hooves that we see on workshops, this isn't a bad one, is it?
It's not that bad at all.
No.
Not that bad at all.
The inside of this foot you're about to see is this foot. It is this exact foot. So I've done a clever little bit of jiggery pokery, and I thought you might like to look at this, which is quite cool. So there you go. That's the foot on the inside, of which we're going to see a little bit more in a minute. Let's cover that back up again. And let's go this way in. There we go. Look at that. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Give us a thumbs up if you're loving it. I could play with this all day. I could seriously play with this all day. So you might have to stop me because I will just go on and on. But that's fairly cool, isn't it? Look at that, half and half. Look at that. People, yes, they love it. They love it, they love it, they love it. Right, let's go back the other way, shall we? Let's go back this way. Dun, 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 dun. As she pulls back the curtain, look at
I'm not sure that Jaws music is appropriate.
Maybe not. Naomi Oliver says that's very satisfying. Yeah, I know, absolutely. Petra Klaus said, did not expect that to look like that. No, it's good, isn't it? It's really cool. All right, back to that in a minute. Let's have more of a look at this foot. Now, this foot was a shod foot, like we said, and these are some images that we took of that same foot. And what you can see here is that it's clearly, obviously, a shod hoof, and that we've taken half of the shoe off and then we've trimmed it, but not by a great deal, I have to say. And we trimmed it to its natural parameters. A little bit more on that later. So you can see there is quite a difference. Now, the shoe is off. You can see a difference in heel height. There's a little bit of contraction going on there at the frog, but nowhere near close to the worst we've ever seen. So let's discuss this a little bit later. But you can see that if you were to measure that hoof with the shoe on, it would have been at least a good, well, we reckon nearly 2 centimeters, wasn't it? It's a good 1.5 centimeters away from its natural foot. And when it was trimmed up naturally, you can see it's not too bad, is it? Now, let's move on and let's go back to that cool thing, because we like that. Just to identify where some of the major components of the hoof are. Again, just so that we're on the same playing field. And I know, so many of you are going to know this. Please don't yawn, just bear with me, because I know there's a lot of people that watching won't necessarily know all of this. All right. We haven't got time to go into massive detail in this webinar about all the workings of the leg or the mechanics of locomotion, because this webinar really is concentrating wholly on the hoof of the horse, which is why it's the way it is and how we're going to help keep its natural structure and entity, etc. And we also won't be covering other things that affect the hooves, such as diet and the gut, because those webinars, guess what? They're coming up in a little while. You just have to go and register for them on our webinar page on our website. And I would recommend registering for those as well, because all of this is like a big story and it kind of all links in, doesn't it, Garry?
It does.
It does.
Very
it does.
Exciting.
It's very. So, all right. So let's have a look at some of the landmarks, right? Rather obviously, we have the skin and the hair. I'm pretty sure everybody recognizes what that is. Now, I bet you didn't know that I could fill up probably 3 whole hour webinars talking about the skin and the hair, couldn't I, Garry? When I do my dissection, clinics at the workshop and I have the foot in front of me, everybody's dying to see what's inside. And I spend about half an hour just talking about the skin, and I could go on and on and on. How many other people know what I mean about talking about skin and hair and how important it is and why it is so important? Yeah, Bethan says she really could. All right, thank you. Moving on. Right, now we've got the periopal. Now this periopal, you can see that as that sort of creamy line that's running down between the hair and the horn. And this is where we are beginning to transition into the hoof. We have this periopal. Now this periopal covers that junction of the skin and the horn, and it's really important. It's an external smooth layer of tissue, and it kind of feels a bit kind of rubbery really when you touch it, and when it's wet it looks quite white, and it functions very much like our cuticle on our nail bed. Now, bit of a disclaimer here, we have to be really careful about comparing our fingers, our feet, our nails and our hooves. Even though we're all mammals and we're all very similar, there are a few, well, obviously slight changes between us. And problems can occur when we try and transpose human mechanics and morphology onto the horse. But having said all that, let's just quickly have a look at the cuticle. So the periopal acts like our cuticle on our nail. That is not my nail. It's not Gary's nail. Mind you, though, because it's a bit dirty. I could be a bit embarrassed with that. However, having said that, I'm a horsey owner. We're all horsey owners. I'll bet if we all looked at our nails right now, most of them are a bit dirty. So the cuticles function, mine are, the cuticles function on your finger to protect the new nail from bacteria and from infection as they grow out of that nail root, because that area around the cuticle is really delicate and it can get dry. It can get damaged, it can get infected, so that area needs protection. And it's the same with the horse. That skin to horn junction in the horse's hoof, it needs that layer of protection, and it's kind of rubbery for that reason. And it's also very good at keeping moisture in as well and stopping loads of water getting in. And when it gets wet, you know, when your fingernails, Garry, when you've been in the bath, they go all mushy, don't they, around the cuticle? They
go all wrinkly.
They do. And that is exactly what happens. And that famous story of a client phoning me up on my way to trimming another person going, oh my God, I've got my horse in, Lindsay. I'm so worried about it. It's got this white stuff all over its hoof. I brought it in. I'm terrified. I haven't called the vet yet. I'm calling you first. I'm like, do you think it's the periopal? And she was like, what's that? I said, go and Google it. And then phone me back. She phoned me back and went, horse is back in the field now. Feel a bit stupid. This is just a periopal. But it's not just a periopal. It's a very clever thing. So in some horses, it's quite a thin line, like in this horse, which was probably, I reckon this horse was probably a hotter or warm-blooded type. And then in others, such as the hairy cobs and drafts, they can have their periopal looking like it's like halfway down the hoof and more. And that's just because it's just not naturally been worn away by the external abrasion, because they've got loads of hair covering it. So it kind of just sticks to the horn and grows down because it's not abraded away. How many people did not know about the periopal and have just learnt something right there, right now? Come on, tell us whether you've learned something or whether you're like, yawn, Lindsay, get on with it. Michelle Lewis is sticking her thumbs up. Because the periopal, Garry, people ignore it, right? They just ignore this lovely, clever piece of engineering, and they're just ignoring it, don't they? They just ignore it. Oh, yeah, Del says me. Marty Whittle says yes. Aisha says me. Oh, Aisha, you got it coming, girl, because I know you're coming to one of our workshops. You wait. Jill didn't know what it was called. Me, new to me. Good. Wow. Now that periopal will also widen towards the back of the hoof. You can't really see it very well here, but part of its job is to sort of widen at the back of the hoof. Now that's, I think, probably to do with the flexibility that goes on at the back of the foot. Charlie says, that explains a lot in our 3 shires why the periopal is halfway down the hoof. It's just because they're hairy monsters and it just doesn't get abraded away. That's all it is. Don't worry about it. Your shires are fine. Right. Now, the coronary band. Now, this area is also known as the coronet. It's synonymously referred to as the coronet, the coronary band. People kind of sort of use it synonymously. And the coronary groove is inside. That's a bit deeper. That's inside that part, but that's underneath where the coronary band is. And then, of course, you have the hoof horn or the hoof wall. And I know... I know this is no news to most of you who are watching right now. In fact, everybody, right? We all know that that's the hoof wall. Lindsay, shut up, get on with it. But really, we should be careful when we're talking about hoof and foot. We should, Garry. It's important because I know it's all tautology, you know, just playing with words, but the hoof is actually the hard, horny capsule that encapsulates the foot, hence the reason the pedal bone is called the coffin bone, because they thought that this was like a coffin, the way it encapsulates the foot, and it encompasses the digit. And the hoof is this highly cornified, horny epidermal structure, and it lacks in blood vessels and nerves, but, and this is very important, even though it's lacking in blood vessels and nerves, it is not dead. So many people say that it's dead. You might think it is. Dead. No, because it plays an important role, this very horny tissue. It plays an important role because I was getting myself lost there. It plays an important role in protecting, in moisture control, in flexibility, in strength. It also helps to dissipate forces. And the biggie with me, which I go on and on and on about, is, what is it, Garry?
The papillae.
Yes, because the papillae that are found in the coronary groove need what? From the ground.
Feedback.
That's my word, boy. That's my word. Feedback.
Feedback.
That's the one. That's the word. The foot inside. Now, the foot inside, right? That includes the underlying dermis, all the coriums, etc. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. All right, good. Feedback. Becky Callahan shouting it out there. Feedback. Did Joanna says, did never think about it similar to the human cuticle. Haha. Well, now you do now. So then we've got the various regions. We've got the toe, we've got the quarter, and we've got the heel. Okay, so even those parts get a little bit confused. And you can see where the nails have been in this horse's foot are not right back at the heel. They're in the quarter, slightly going towards the toe. And that is usually where the nails are put when a horse has its foot shod. All right, so for a moment, we're going to just leave some labels on as we reveal again, and I do my trick of revealing the inside of the hoof, which I know you all love and you can't wait to see. So I'm going to do that now because it's important to recognize where those regions are as they relate to the inside of the hoof, because that is an important factor in understanding not only how the hoof functions, but also the mechanics. And you can see quite a bit when we do this. Are you ready? Here we go. So if I take that away, but we leave those labels in place, you can see, just click off that so you can take that. You can see that a great deal of the toe region is taken up with bone. You can see this on this sagittal cross section, right? So you can see that the toe is mainly bone, and obviously we've got the wall, etc., and we've got laminae, but we've got bone there. And as we go into the quarter, we've got kind of a combo going on. We've got a combo of both bone and then more softer tissues. And then as we get into the heel, what do we see? All soft tissue, isn't it? So let's just bring that back up. And bring it down one more time. Oh God, I've got to stop playing with this. There you go. It's cool, right? Right. So let's carry on with the inside and let's go and have a look at some of these inside. Now, that whole apparatus that you are now looking at, the inside of the foot, is actually called the podotrochlear apparatus. And it's a big word. I know it's a big word, but it comprises various joints, bones, and tendons, as well as key ligaments. Right, before we go any further, how many bones are there in the human foot? Garry, don't speak. Let's see if people are watching, are paying attention. I haven't said it yet. How many bones are there in the human foot? Matteo says over 200. No, not in the foot, Matteo. That's in the whole body. How many bones? You don't need to raise your hand. Just stick it in the chat. How many bones? 26, 26, 26. Greg says 27. Sam says 26. Yes. Everyone is looking. Everybody's
That's cheating.
That's cheating.
That's cheating.
Not allowed. You're not allowed to do that. Bella says a lot. Well, it is, in fact, Garry, how many?
It is 26.
26 bones in the human foot.
33 joints.
And 33 joints.
Yeah.
So how many bones have we got in the horse's foot, Garry? Let me just...
One and a bit.
We've got 1, 2 and a bit. We've got 2 and a bit compared to...
Okay, yeah, 2 and a bit, okay.
Yeah, obviously 2 and a bit.
I wasn't counting one of them because I didn't... Yeah, well, okay. 2 and a bit. Because
you're not awake. 2 and a bit bones, right? 2 and a bit bones in the horse's foot. Now, if I go back to this, you can see those 2 and a bit bones. Look, there's 1, there's 2. And there's a bit of that one. Boom. There it is. And the rest of it's going off up the leg. Right. Okay, let's go back. So that's number one. And Greg Glendale says, depends what you call the foot and true foot. Does it? Mika says, can you calm down a little in speaking and laughing? It's hard to follow. Oh no, I'm going too fast and I'm laughing too much. Okay, I shall slow down. But if I slow down, Mika, you don't want to hear me. I'll be going on all night. I'll slow down a little bit. All right. Thank you, Mika. What about tendons? How many tendons have we got in the foot? Come on, everybody watching. How many tendons have we got in the foot? So we've worked out we've got, compared to the human foot, we've got 26, and the bones in the horse is 2 and a bit. How many tendons? Somebody says 3, Lillian says 2, Marty Whistle says 3, Joyce says 2, Regina says 2, Naomi says 2. What do we think? What do we think in terms of tendons? We have got 2. We've got the deep digital flexor tendon and the extensor tendon, and they are running into the foot. We're going to look at those in a minute. But what about ligaments? How many ligaments? Quite a few. Tris says 1. No, it's way more than 1. There's actually more ligaments in the horse's foot than there are tendons, because of even though there's only 3 bones in there, or 2 and a bit bones, there's ligaments holding those bones together, and there's ligaments slung up onto the other bones that are holding it all in a sling. And those are, there's quite a few. We've only got 2 and a bit bones, 2 tendons, and quite a few ligaments. Unlike the human foot, where we've got lots and lots of ligaments, loads of tendons, and we've got lots of bones. And not only that, we've got something else in the human foot that the horse's foot doesn't have in it. Does anybody know? What does the human foot have in its foot? Well, apart from all the bones. Yes. Yes. Well done. God, they're listening. They're paying attention, Garry. This is great. Muscles, 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 muscles. Marvelous. Therese says muscles. Okay, brilliant. Let us move on. So here we go. We have got P1. Can you see it? If I do that with my arrow, can you see that, Garry?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We've got P1, which is known as the proximal phalanx as well, or the long pastern. They all have so many different names. We have P2, which is the middle phalanx, which is the short pastern. And then we've got P3, which is known as the pedal bone, the coffin bone. Give me some more names. Give me some more names for P3, pedal bone, coffin bone. Come on. Come on. They can't type it fast enough. Distal phalanx, that's another name for it. Hoof bone, Micah, that'll do. I love it. The third, oh, Joyce is just showing off with her French now. Look at this. Troisième phalange. All right, pointy bone in the foot. Yes, Bethan, it's the pointy bone. In fact,
it is the pointy bone.
Many people think, and we've had this, haven't we, on so many workshops, that people think that the pedal bone actually looks like that pointy arrow, and they don't realize that it looks like this little kind of mini hoof when you look at it properly, when it's in its hole, because this has been cut in half. All right, so now we've got the frog. Now you can see that this frog is here, and it sort of ends here. So this is the point of the frog, just about here. And then this, where the end of the pedal bone is, just roughly about 1 centimetre further on from the point of the frog. And this area here is the sole. And then we have the digital cushion. Now this, I'm slightly in love with the digital cushion, I'll be honest. It's slightly one of my favourite things in the foot, mainly because it's a bit like me, it's a bit different. You don't find it anywhere else. It's kind of a bit unique. And the digital cushion plays this really big role in absorbing and dampening forces that are applied to the foot. And it also supports internal structures such as the navicular bone But its architecture, believe it or not, even though we were in the 21st century and we're in 2023, its architecture is still not really all that well known. It's a modified inner part of the skin. It's that third layer of the inside of the skin, and which is called the subcutis or the subcutaneous layer. And it's a modified version of that. And it's a kind of meshwork of these collagenous, elastic fibers so that it can withstand a great deal of force and be compressed, but also so it can bounce right back again. It's also got a few small fat cells in there, some adipose fat cells in there, but not a lot. And it also has some little bundles of fibrocartilage, because it has all of these little things. And there's nothing quite like it, is there, Garry? There's nothing quite like the digital cushion. And it's got some receptors in it too. And researchers have looked at various breeds of cow, yes, because they have a digital cushion too. And they found out that it varied in its thickness just slightly between various breeds of cow. Did you know that, Garry? Am I telling you something you didn't know?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So researchers looked at it, and I don't know why they wanted to know that, but they found out that it varied in thickness, and it was a genetic component to the breed of the cow. So just thinking out loud, it probably is going to be that's going to follow, I reckon, with the horse. And in fact, it is what we see. When we do lots of dissections, we do tend to see that the thickness varies. But of course, there are other variables that affect that thickness and the maturity of that digital cushion as well. And shoeing, of course, is one of them. So we also know it can get damaged, just like other collagenous tissue. It can get scarred, and it's particularly if horses have deep central sulcus frog infections that are really difficult to clear up. That can go straight through the hairline and into the digital cushion. We do know that it can get damaged, and those receptors in there, they found that there's quite a few of them around the navicular area. And that is really important in understanding why horses who have navicular or are diagnosed with navicular don't like putting weight on the back of their foot. Jeanette says, I'm obsessed with the quality of my boys' digital cushions. Jeanette, I'll bet you're one of those, aren't you? They'll go around and go, ooh, that feels lovely. That digital cushion.
Giving it a good squidge.
Giving it a good squidge. All right. All okay so far. I'm slowing down for you, Micah. I hope that's a little bit better. If I'm slowing down, that does mean that we're probably going to be here a while. Just give us a thumbs up if you're happy with what you're hearing so far, and it's also good. Good. Marvelous. Let's move on. Great, says Sue Langford. Marvelous. Sue's in Australia, I think. Now, what you might not already know, and I'll bet you don't know this, and I remember talking to Garry about this, he didn't know, and I'll bet loads of you watching right now don't know something about something called the distal digital annular ligament, right? Right here, we've got the DDFT. You can see it here. This is well, I'm not going to ask you all to type it out because it'll take forever, which is why I didn't type it out, but this is the DDFT, which stands for the deep digital flexor tendon, and it comes down here over the navicular bone, or under the navicular bone, should we say, and it roots itself into the bottom of P3 right there. It changes, it's incredible. It changes from, this is why the biology is just amazing. It changes from this being a tendon into bone because it attaches itself here. But what you didn't know is that there is something called the DDAL, or the distal digital annular ligament. And I haven't put it up here, but it runs down here. Look at this, right? You can't hardly see it. And it runs between the digital flexor tendon and the digital cushion. And it's a ligament that attaches to the bone. It's a big annular ligament. It's one of the 3 annular ligaments at the bottom of the horse's leg. And it attaches up here to P1, and it acts like a sling. And it's part of that entire mechanism that's like a sling in the foot. Give us a thumbs up if that is something that you didn't know. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Everybody just goes, oh, deep digital flexor tendon, navicular bone, and nobody thinks of the distal digital annular ligament, which is part of the sling. Yes, it is amazing. Thank you all. Thank you all. Diana Rundle says yes, 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 yes. Right, who's that Di Rundle? Is that my Di Rundle? I wonder if it is. If that's you, if that's my Di Rundle, give us a wave, Di. Right, Regina says I didn't know. No. Now, here we have the coffin joint. This is this bit here. This is this joint. Yes, it is. Hello, Di. Gosh, long time no see. Love you, Di. Right, coffin joint.
Hi, Di.
Here it is. Here's the coffin joint. Now, this is also known as the interphalangeal joint. Stephanie says, that's why we're here. You're great. Keep it coming. I'm keeping it coming. This is also known as the interphalangeal joint, this bit here. Well, it's all kind of all around here. And that white stuff you see, that's cartilage. So that stops friction, because we don't want friction, and it's lubricated in there as well, so that a bit like the engine in your car is lubricated with oil, joints like this are lubricated with something called the synovial fluid, which is kind of viscous and a little bit thick. But unlike your car, you can't top it up. You can't top up the synovial fluid in your horse's joints. Your horse has to do that, and it can only do that if it's nice and healthy. All right, moving on. Now we've got the navicular bone. Here it is. There it is. That tiny little bone, which is just a sesamoid bone, which is a sesamoid bone is might as well be known as a spacer. And that keeps the deep digital flexor tendon away from that coffin joint. And it also keeps the deep digital flexor tendon at a very specific angle. And that's really important when we're talking about heel height and understanding the inside of the horse's foot. Let's moving on. Now, here we've got the navicular bursa. You may have heard of that. This is a synovial sac all on its own that lives between the navicular bone, right here is the navicular, and the DDFT. There it is. So it's this little navicular bursa here. And that serves to lubricate that tendon as it slides over the back of the navicular bone. And we know that when horses are walking toe first predominantly, because they've got some kind of pain in the back of the foot, that this area here can become stressed and can become hot under friction. And we even know, because we've seen it, that the deep digital flexor tendon can actually, under great deal of friction and stress, can start to adhere itself as it loses that synovial fluid. It can adhere itself and be damaged to and adhere itself to that navicular bone. Adhere meaning stick to the navicular bone. Okay, are you with me? Is it good? Are you understanding? Please show us the navicular bone. There it is. Right there. And for those of you who want to know where the impar ligament is, because that seems to be a very important ligament that people bring up in workshops, that's here. This impar ligament is just in here. It looks like bone. It isn't. There's a ligament there, just there. It's actually just there. And that's the impar ligament. Okay. There's so much more we could talk to you about in this, but we got to move on. Right. Here's the coronary groove. Here it is. And like Garry said earlier, what lives in the coronary groove, Garry?
The papillae.
Finger-like.
Unsung hero.
Like the digital cushion. I love.
Nobody talks about the papillae.
The papillae are finger-like projections that root themselves in the coronary groove. They sit into holes in the coronary groove, and from them, keratin, they're surrounded by keratin cells, and from that they produce keratin, which is the horn, which grows down the foot. Now, remember I said about that horn, don't think of it as being dead. Those papillae, they have, what are they supplied with, Garry? I'm putting him on the spot, poor boy.
Blood.
Blood.
Blood. Blood. Nutrients.
Blood. But that's where it comes through the blood. And what else is it supplied with?
A nerve.
A nerve. Now, you tell me, guys, why the papillae that produce horn, that dead horn, all the way down the foot, tell me why Mother Nature would even bother putting a nerve in those papillae. Think about that for a moment. Answers in the chat, please. Why does a papillae have a nerve? And if you don't know, just go, I've got absolutely no clue. Oh, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Feedback, yes. Proprioception, yes. And where does it get that feet stimulation, says Bethan? To talk to the ground, says Tanya. Loving it, love them, they're on it. Sensory, to help determine growth rate needed. Oh, yes, Greg, you're doing well there. All of those things are the reason why. It's all about feedback. Now, what would happen, just saying, what would happen if I took the end of this bit of horn off here and we removed it and we allowed the horse to walk on the sole, because we trimmed this to the natural parameters. And as you can see, this white bit, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is touching the ground. What would happen if I removed this, as so many people do, because they're worried about something called lever forces? What would happen, apart from putting the whole horse on his sole here, what would happen? Michelle Lewis is like that. No. Mika says, so the foot can feel which ground it's. Yes, Mika, it can. It knows. It will grow faster. What will grow faster if we remove it? No, it's the opposite, Ep. It's the opposite happens. There's no more feedback to the papillae, like Jeanette says. Naomi says there would be too much pressure on the heel. Well, yeah, because we've changed the angle. That's a nice point, but that's something a bit not what we're talking about right now, but good point, Naomi. If we take this off here and we remove it, we bevel it away completely so that the horse is walking on its sole, because we're worried that we're going to tear this lamina here. We've now just stopped the feedback at the front of the foot. Remember that toe region? We've just stopped the feedback at the front of the foot to this papillae. And the result of that is, as Bethan says, the stimulation is lost. And that means things slow down. And we've seen it so many times. So many times you chop the toe off and the papillae are lost up there. They're like, oh, I was producing horn 5 minutes ago and don't seem to need it now. Marvelous. I just won't bother making any horn. Let's just go on a holiday. So the papillae,
they can have a kip.
They have a kip. They have a sleep.
They have a kip.
Yeah, it's not great. And I have a saying. I have a big saying, don't I, Garry? That if you do something to one part of the foot, Garry,
don't expect it to have a distinct effect on somewhere else. Don't
think it's not going to have an effect, guys, because it will. If you do something to any part of that foot that is beyond nature's parameters, yeah. Right, we've got to move on. Come on, hoof wall. So we got the outer hoof wall. That's there for protection. We got the inner hoof wall. That's nature's horseshoe. That's the bit, the hardest part of the foot. That's that bright white bit, the bit that it should be walking on. We've got the laminae. And I could spend webinars and webinars and webinars talking about all of this. I've already talked on far too much already. And so just give us a thumbs up if you're still with us and you're still okay and you're not bored to death. Let's just bring that outside up again and let's just see, because you're going to love this bit. Let's just see where all those landmarks are when you bring the foot up again. Can you see? Isn't that interesting? Don't you find that interesting? I do. Where's that? Look how
very interesting.
In it. Look at that. That's really, really interesting when you bring that foot up, because we can't see in there, can we? So if we do this, look where that DDFT is and where it runs down here, where the navicular bone is, where the bursa is. Yeah, doesn't it look so high up? That's because it is. It's because it's quite a way up in the foot. It's right up here because there's only this. Here's the coronary band, goes all the way down there, look. That navicular bone is right there near the top. Everybody thinks of it down here somewhere or back here, but it isn't. It's kind of sort of towards the middle, towards the back. Yes, it's a big wow, says Louise Oxley. Debbie Parrott, wow. Marty Whittle, amazing. Bethan says, it looks so high up. Right, let's move on. I'm going to take you on a little history lesson. Hold tight. I know it could be boring, but let's just trot back in time, clip clop, and let's look at the origins of the genus Equus, because this is important. So the genus Equus belongs to the family Equidae, and they're the only genus in Equidae. It goes family, genus, species. They're the only genus in Equus, and there are actually, Garry, only 7 species left. What's that? Stephanie says, I need to review this about 50 times to get it all. That's okay. You can replay it as much as you like. There are only 7 species left of Equus on the planet. 7, Garry.
Yes, there was a lot more. There was a lot more, wasn't there?
There were
only 7 left.
There were an awful lot more. Let me know if my video starts going funny and I'll just stop it and start it again. So we've got 3 zebra species, 3 wild ass species. We had 4. We lost one of those in 1999. It just completely disappeared. And we've got 1 horse species. That's it. 7. And of the 3 zebras and the 3 wild ass, they are all endangered or on the endangered list. That's crazy, isn't it? One day in the not too far future, guys, if we don't change the way that we are destroying their habitats, we're not going to have zebras or wild ass in the wild. We'll only ever see them in zoos. And that's crazy. All right, just as a little aside. So Equus caballus, that is the name of Equus caballus. Or to give it its correct name, let me just type that in there, is Equus ferus caballus. That's its actual name. It's Equus ferus. Caballus is actually a subspecies of Equus ferus, but it is the only subspecies. Well, no, it's not the only one. Equus ferus is the actual species, and there's 2 subspecies that we know. We've got caballus, and we'll talk about the other one in a minute, but that's it. And they are subspecies. They're not species in their own right. They are parts of Equus ferus. Now, the evolution of the horse, just like the evolution of man and other species, took a very, very long time. Come on, guys, throw it to me. How long did it take for the horses to evolve from this lovely little jigger down here that looks like a little dog, all the way up here to the horse that we know today? How many, Samantha Bostock, that's cheating because you have just been on a workshop. Naughty. 55 million years. 55 million years is how long it took. Okay, 55 million years from this little tiny thing down here, which was called Eohippus, which was the dawn horse, which was found in the Eocene epoch. And it took 55 million years to go from Eohippus up to the modern horse. But what we do know is while it was evolving, there were quite a few of these species knocking around when Eohippus was alive, and a few of these species knocking around. And when this was alive, there were a few of these. And it wasn't a direct evolution, because the Equus evolution is one of the most recorded of all species on the planet. But they still, even though there still is the most recorded, they still don't know everything about it, of course. So here we go, 55 million years. When did the horse stop evolving? Don't say anything, Garry, not allowed. Samantha Bostock, you're not allowed to say anything anymore. You're banned because you keep getting it right.
Students are not allowed to say a thing.
So
you're banned.
Greg says it hasn't. Oh, it's controversial, Greg. Controversial that, but me and you are going to have a separate conversation about that. Very controversial. Rosemary Bird says it hasn't, just like us. Is it still evolving? Well, taxonomists would have a field day with you guys because you're too clever and you're all independent thinkers. But in the way that modern horse is today, when they lost their toes, yes, they went through a kind of retraction as they lost toes. You're quite right, Regina. But horses stopped evolving to the modern horse of Equus caballus that we have today 1.5 million years ago, which would basically be right the way near the end of that arrowhead was when they stopped evolving, which is a bit crazy, isn't it? But now we're going to put this into a bit of perspective, because anthropologists, spit that name out, Lindsay, anthropologists, those are the ones that study the evolution and culture of man. They believe that the dawn of man was around about 2 million years ago. In Africa, it happens. But long before the modern human as we know, or well, in inverted commas, modern human of Homo sapiens, before they appeared on the same continent, the modern human of Homo sapien appeared around about 200,000 years ago. Now, remember, horses had stopped evolving while the man, the Homo sapien, was carrying on evolving. So let's put Homo sapien in his rightful place on the timeline, shall we, Garry? Are we ready? Oh, no, that's far, far, far. No. Sorry, Homo sapiens. Oh, sorry. There you go. Ooh. That's it. It's a bit shocking. How many people are shocked by that? How many people? That's crazy, isn't it? That's just utterly crazy. Yeah. You there you are thinking, here's a horse, look, la la la, going through its evolution, over 55, and there we are. And in fact, we're probably even more of a dot than it is like, I can't show it any less than that. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely wow. And horses, now get this, we've taken 200,000 years to develop. Horses stopped evolving 1.5 million years ago, and horses weren't properly domesticated until 6,000 years ago. That's all, 6,000 years ago. And shoes weren't invented till around about the Roman period, which was around 400 BC. So if anybody's doing their maths, that's about 2,500 years ago. That's when shoes were invented. So horses, for 55 million years, have been getting on quite nicely without us. But what do you think changed for the horse? And just as an aside, it makes me shudder, doesn't it, you, Garry, when you think of the horses that they used to nail these shoes on when they didn't know quite what we know. Mind you, I bet they cut things up. I bet they had a good look inside. But there you go. Those were some Roman shoes. So tell us, folks, what changed for the horse? Domestication, says Lydia. Yes. They started being walked and wore their hooves down too quickly. No. Well, that's a kind of... I like your thinking, though. War, says Marty Whittle. You're damn right, war came around. Nutrition and environment. Very good, Sherry. You've got it. Petra says less movement, wrong food, held in little places, standing in their poo. People read our posts, Garry. I'm sure they do. Well done, folks.
I'm sure they do too.
They were prisons. Humans breed them for specific purposes. Management, being ridden, the shoe turns, the being ridden bit isn't so bad. The shoe turns the horse into a machine. Ooh, very controversial. Greg, you're so controversial. Maggie says Roman roads. Right. Now, what actually happened was, and it was Petra, I think, that you're all sort of all there in the right ballpark. They were taking them with them to war. And they couldn't just let them all roam around in herds all around. So they were keeping them in stalls and they were confining them. And they were standing around in their own poo and pee. And this and the ammonia and the bacteria and the fungus all started to take its toll and weaken the foot. And it's no different to today. Not only that, but they couldn't give him a ton of grass. Not that they wanted to give him a ton of grass, but they were giving them other feeds. They were giving them wheat. They were giving them oats. They were giving them feeds that we still give horses today. And that started to take its toll. It wasn't really about selective breeding, because remember, Rosemary, the horse is still the same species. It's not a lot to do with breeding. And I have to tell you that diet and management, and I know some of you here tonight will go, or today will go, don't believe you, but diet and management trumps genetics pretty much every single time. It trumps genetics. Oh, and they also had a massive, great big dollop of misunderstanding the horse's hooves, the Romans. They can't blame it. We can't blame them because it was a long time ago. So let's not blame the Romans. It was 400 BC. It was 2,500 years ago. They were doing what they felt was right because they needed these horses to go to war. And we're okay, aren't we, Garry? Because we're now in the 21st century. So of course, now we know a load better, don't we?
Of course we do. Do we?
Yeah. Right. We've only had 2,500 years to work it out and 6,000 years since we domesticated them. Right. Only some of us. You're quite right. All right. Let's move on. So let's have a little game. Where did equus first start evolving? Come on. Put your comments in the chat because and you're not allowed to say anything, Garry. You're not allowed. I've got my marker ready. Here it is. La 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 la. Tell me where to put it. And don't test my geography. I'm good at continents. Africa, there. That's what somebody said. Central Asia, over here. North America. Ooh, somebody says North America over there. Asia, back to Asia again. South America, Middle East. Here, that's the Middle East. I have to think about that for a minute. Middle East, Asian steppes, or the Eurasian steppes. Forests, says Maggie Gallup. Just forests. Quite right, Maggie. They did start So, well, predominantly it's over here, isn't it, Garry? Everybody's pretty much saying Africa. So what we're kind of saying is over here on this side of the world, on this major area here is what you're saying, isn't it? That's where everybody's saying, yes, yes, yes. That's where everybody's saying, yeah, yeah. No, you're wrong. They didn't evolve there. No, they evolved here. Right there. Did you know that? They don't believe me. No, North America is where the horse, where Eohippus, the dawn horse, remember that little tiny, let's go back to him, Eohippus, this little jigger here, he was found here in North America. Yes, really, Sherry. Yes, Joanne, really. Angela, no, they're all like, what? Don't believe it. And I'm going to explain. Let me take you on a history lesson. Once upon a time, the world didn't look quite like the world we have today. It was a big supercontinent called Pangaea. And all the land masses, they were all kind of clumped together. And then around about 200 million years ago, quite a long time ago, before the horse started evolving, it broke into two parts. And you had Laurasia at the top and Gondwana land towards the bottom. And this is important because you can see that the masses are just still touching, but not down in the southern hemisphere around Australia, and which also became Antarctica and New Zealand, amongst others. They separated off around about 200 million years ago. Hence why we have so many distinct and unique creatures that come from down under. If you're coming from down under, give us a shout. Give us a shout. Say, hello, it's early morning. We are from Australia. Well, you guys, you broke off 200 million years ago from the rest of us. You were like, nah, don't want any of you guys. We are definitely breaking away from you, big continent. We're going to be on our own. Go away. Bye-bye. We're going to grow our own very special species, which is why we don't have kangaroos on Dartmoor in the UK, because they're only in that area of the world, right? So I promise we're going to get onto the trim. I do promise we're going to get onto the trim. Right. Now, after Gondwana land and Laurasia were there, they started around about 65 million years ago. We almost had the continents. They were shifting apart again, and we almost had the continents we have today. And up at the top there, around about here, was something we called the Bering Bridge. Now, there's been a big, huge debate about the Bering Bridge, massive, and it still goes on to this day. And this is where they believe humans who evolved, who were first found in Africa, bum, 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 they went up here and headed west. And then guess what happened to the horses who evolved here? They went all the way up here and headed east. Now, there were some horses still here and still here. eventually. But then humans made the horse in North America become extinct. Why and how did they do that? How did horses go extinct in North America? Because most of the people that are watching this webinar, Garry, think that horses evolved over here. Yeah, humans have not been on the planet that long, really, have they? And they made this horse go extinct because they ate them, basically. They preyed upon them and they killed them and they munched on them. They ate all of them and the rest of them died. And so, because there have been various other things. And Tanya's right. Przewalski's is the oldest. Okay, let's move on. So here we have our the world as we knew it back then. And I'm just going to fade that out of the way. That's just disappeared. Let's just, and the Bering Bridge was way up here somewhere. Okay, so let's just delete that for a moment. So in our modern human world, horses didn't return back to North America until the late 1400s. Let's just click off that. And early 1500s, when the Spanish conquistadors brought European horses to North America. So that's where you're all confused. They got domesticated. Oh, I'm just going to delete that because it's annoying me. They got domesticated up here from the Eurasian steppe in Mongolian times, or with Genghis Khan. You're going to find out about in a minute. And then, ooh, don't move. And then they went, never eat shredded wheat, west. They went west. The Spanish took them up, all of them getting domesticated all around here in Europe. The Spanish took them over to the Caribbean and they escaped, some of them, and they basically trotted off or cantered off and went, bye-bye humans, don't want you anymore, and went straight back to the place where they originally evolved from. Cool. How many people think that that is cool? Cool, 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 cool. Greg says ancient rock paintings in North America suggest didn't become extinct. Well, as far as the taxonomists say, there's rock paintings in North America, there's rock paintings in France, and they've looked at the two of them together, and they believe that eventually they just popped off because we ate them all, basically. The Native American Indians had horses before the Spanish came. Well, that's interesting, Joyce, but according to history, they didn't. They didn't. That they actually only had the horses when they came back to North America. These are the same people that were saying that the horse was evolving up here now. They're telling me that they were still here. So, and some of the Spanish had them in Florida. They did. They went to the Caribbean. They went to basically this area around here, and some of them just escaped. And it was around about the 1500s. And at this time in North America, it was widely covered with open grasslands, and it served as this great habitat for these horses. And these horses quickly adapted to their former range, and they spread across the nations. And horses, before they were even domesticated, had been living along in the Eurasian steppe. And then they went west when they were domesticated. And here he is. Enough of the history. I know enough of the history, but I just got to bring up Genghis Khan because we're going to get onto the trim in a minute. Well, it's all about not ignoring the evolution of equus and understanding that before the humans started fiddling with their diet and management and the hooves, they were doing okay. Because the great warrior Genghis Khan of the Mongolian Empire, he wreaked havoc across that Asian continent in the early 1200s, and his horses were largely unshod. Well, unshod with metal, that is. Now, this is going to be quite controversial again. Everything about the horse is controversial, Garry. It's controversial again because there are some farrier schools that teach that Genghis shod all his horses because he wore out thousands to bloody nubs, and therefore he had to shoe them, and they are taught that. But history, literary history, evidence doesn't point to that. It indicates that the Mongol horses weren't shod, well, at least with metal anyway. But although that some horses' hooves, they did think were shod, like the Romans, were shod with skins. And during that Genghis Khan period, they had kind of a mixture of barefoot and skin. And there is an evidence that metal was actually used by the Mongols in the West during Kublai Khan's invasions in Japan in the late 1200s, but they weren't all shod. It's important to know that. Now, I know that some of you here are going to be like, no, the Mongol Derby, I don't like it. But I need to tell you something about the Mongol Derby, because these are stallions that are used in this Mongol Derby, and they're all unshod. They're all living cheek by jowl with the Mongolians, and they know them very, very well. Humans and Mongolians have been doing this for thousands of years, 6,000 to be exact, and they live together in perfect harmony. They're not kept in stables, these Mongolian horses. They're not fed supplements. They're not on bagged feeds. And they are one of the fittest and healthiest horses on the planet. And they are the real epitome of equus caballus, healthy bodies, minds, souls, and hooves. And the Mongol Derby is based on this ancient messenger system by Genghis Khan in this horrendously barren landscape where basically the horse is king. And the Mongol Derby is this 1,000-kilometer race, and it's the toughest test on the planet for equestrian endurance riders. And these horses, they're not harmed. Each of them go about 40 kilometers and then they're swapped out, which in history tells us exactly what Genghis Khan used to do. He used to have many horses for him and his armies to ride, because there were lots of Mongolian horses on the Eurasian steppe. And he didn't swap them out because he was wearing their hooves out. Far from it. It was because these animals were at full pelt for 40 odd kilometers in the Mongolian Derby, need to be rested so that they can get going again on the other day. And the Native Americans, thank you, Lydia. The Native Americans rode them unshod, and they still do to this day, Lydia. If you speak to Native Indians and Native Americans, they still do ride their horses unshod to this day. And why? Because they keep them very differently to how we do in the Western world, or how we do outside of their compounds. So the hooves were left untrimmed, unshod, and farriers to this day are basically non-existent in Mongolia. But despite the lack of attention, Mongol horses have the hardest, strongest hooves on the planet, bar those Mustangs in the Great Basin, who seldom experience foot problems. Now, somebody mentioned Przewalski's horse, Equus ferus Przewalski. It's time to mention them now. These are now, thankfully, it's amazing, they are being rewilded back into the Eurasian steppe, which is where they evolved from. And they're named after that Russian geographer, Nikolai Przewalski. And they have 66 chromosomes compared to the 64 that domestic horses have. Which is why taxonomists are basically having this massive debate and huge fight amongst themselves, because they think that they should be, some think they should be characterized as Equus Przewalski, their own specific species, and others go, no, they're not different enough. They are still Equus ferus, but they're Equus ferus Przewalski as a subspecies. So, and what's really unusual about Przewalski's horses is that they can produce fertile hybrids with the domestic horse, 65 chromosomes. Did you know that, Garry? They can mix.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're able to breed and they're able to produce offspring, and we mustn't lose them. And so consequently, thankfully, we now have some rewilding projects way out. What rewilding projects is way out in the Eurasian steppe. So the point I'm trying to get across is why? Why can these horses do so well on the Eurasian steppe in the Great Basin, and yet our domestic horses, they're still the same species, they can't, or it seems that they can't? What are we doing wrong to Equus caballus to make them unable to cope on their magnificent feat of engineering those hooves? What are we doing wrong? Tell me, guys, what are we doing wrong? We're interfering, says Bethan. Lifestyle. We restrict their movement, says Naomi. We're not giving them appropriate terrain. Good. Too much sugar and carbs. Ours have crap diet and held in stables, confining them. I'm preaching to the converted. I'm utterly preaching to the converted. Lack of movement and commercial feeds, not keeping them in their feral state or environment. Okay, good. So, misinformation, shall we call it fake news, because it's a phrase we're all very familiar with nowadays, aren't we? Donald Trump popularize the term fake news. Well, I'm going to pick up on it and say that this is all about fake news. Humans have got so hung up on what we should be doing to the foot, do to make it better and to make it right and to stop pathology, that they've given up understanding the natural foot. We've heard it all, right? The heels are too low. That horse needs more heel. Lots of you said that at the beginning, right? The horse would be lame. The laminae are being crushed. Somebody else said about the papillae, or was it the papillae? Something you said was being crushed. Somebody said that earlier on. My horse wears his hooves off if I don't shoe him. Show me, folks, those bloody nubs. Because so far, on all the years that I've been on social media, and Hoofing Marvellous have been on social media, we've never, ever had a picture sent to us of bloody nubs. Never. There's nothing natural about my horse, people say. I ride my horse. He's nothing like those wild horses, and so many, many more. And maybe some of you here might be very confused. Some of you looking at this horse here and going, oh my God, it's crushing something back there. It's really, really bad. It's not good. But let me tell you, this mare was galloping around the Great Basin before she was taken in by the BLM and she died because she couldn't cope with captivity. This mare was showing no signs of inflammation in her feet, and this mare was incredibly sound, and that foot had never been touched by human hand. And yet we're told it's got too low a heel. So it's a lot of fakeisms. If horses, horses weren't meant to have riders, so that's why we need shoes. Well, tell that to those who domesticated the horses 6,000 years ago when horseshoes didn't exist, because they didn't have horseshoes. So we now know that natural horse and hoof care is about 3 important things: diet, trim, and management. If you don't get all those 3 right, you're going to have problems. And these are the sort of problems we're going to get. That foot on the left there is a very, very laminitic foot. It's been put in a clog. It's had its toe removed. It's trying to keep that angle between the hoof pastern axis and the toe. It's in a rocker shoe to try and make it better. We have to recognize that chasing pathology is a really bad thing to do. Instead of chasing pathology, what we just need to do, Garry, is what?
Don't chase it, ignore it, recognize it, but ignore it with regards to the trim.
And then what do we do?
Oh, address the diet and the management.
That's right. Address the diet and the management. Because I've got a saying, I've got hundreds of sayings. If you do unnatural things, what I love about my sayings is they get put out on the internet. Do you remember the saying I came up with, which was all horses can go barefoot, but not all owners? That was like 20 years ago. If you do unnatural things, expect unnatural things.
Unnatural things to happen.
And we're not just talking about unnatural things to do with the trim here, guys. We mean the diet and the management too. But this webinar isn't going to go into great details about all of that. We need to know about this little thing here, which is the trim. So come on then, let's get into it. It's all about knowing horses' constants. You have to know what is constant. So no matter what else is happening in the foot or to the foot or any hoof problems or any pathologies, if you know where the horse's constants are, you can never go wrong, because a constant is basically something that never changes, no matter what the variables are. And we have to learn from these constants. And that biggest constant that we know is all the things that happen naturally to the horse's foot. Because remember this image that we had earlier on? Remember this? All of these are constants. All of these in here are constants. They don't change. They're still there. Let me just bring that back up one more time. Now, I think if I do something very clever for you here, if I position that backward, and I've got something else that I can bring. Oh, let's position that backward. Oh, it's disappeared. Oh, my little lovely picture's disappeared. Oh, well, Let's have a look at, there it is. It's come back. Look, we've got human beings that are very, very confused. Let's put on this hoof, let's put our wild foot. Let's put our wild foot on there. Now, it's not exactly the same, but look how good that is. Okay. The confusion happens when the hoof becomes pathological. That's where it starts. And that's when humans start to lose sight of what's natural. Many professionals that work with horses have no clue what a natural foot looks like. And when it begins to distort, or when the horse, yeah, I know, right? It's even lower. The heel is even lower in that one. And when it begins to distort, or the horse becomes lame, and then the human feels the need to ignore those constants and start to make it up basically as they go along. And there they are, a bit rudderless. They're like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm just going to do something with the foot to make it behave. So they've lost their way. And so they feel the need to take over and do their own thing. So it's all about knowing those constants, and you have to ignore all pathology and trim to the one constant of all, the big greatest constant of all, which is basically the hard sole plane. Now, I know I've deliberately picked an unhealthy looking foot here. This is an image that we often see though, right? When we come to take the shoes off, it's not a picture of health. It's not horrendous, in fact, but it's not exactly wholly healthy, is it? I mean, we've got some fungal infection going in here where the nail holes are. The white line doesn't look too good. We've had a toe clip here. We've lost part of the wall here. A little bit of contraction going on here. But rather than be sidetracked by the pathology, our guide has to be that hard sole plane, because the hard sole plane is just that. It's hard, it's waxy, and it comes from and only by going through the right training to teach people what the waxy sole feels like will you know how far to go and how far to stop. Now, it may come as a surprise to you, but inside that horse's foot is an arch, and all horses have it. They all have the arch, they all have the hard sole plane, and it doesn't matter how thin or thick that sole is, it is still there, the hard sole plane. Now, in this horse, that is the thickness of its sole, and a sole on a horse just needs to be as thick as it needs to be for that horse to be sound. Did you know that? It doesn't have to be a specific thickness, just as what it needs to be sound. Jane says, what do you mean exactly by ignoring pathology? Do you want to take that one, Garry?
Yeah, sure. So pathology is anything that is happening to the foot that is potentially unnatural. So we could have abscesses, we could have white line disease, we could have seedy toe, lots of things that can go on with the hoof. Now, we recognize them, or hoof cracks, anything that is that is not making that hoof healthy. That would be down to pathology. Now, we recognize it for sure, but if we had a hoof crack, we're not going to gouge it out. If we've got white line disease or seedy toe, we're not going to cut it back and get rid of all of that infection. What we're actually going to do is follow the hard sole plane, trim to nature's parameters, sort out the diet and the management, because that's what's causing those pathologies in the first place, and allow the animal, the horse, to then heal itself. And Mother Nature is absolutely amazing.
Oh my God, it's amazing. If you put it in the right, you give the right environment. And so too many people attribute lameness, don't they, Garry, and footiness to that sole, right? It's got thin soles, my horse is footy, but in actual fact, you remember seeing how where all the bones were and where all the soft tissues were, because you've seen inside the foot now, and those soft tissues, that's really the area which has the biggest issue, and it's towards the back of the foot, and that is where horses have a lot of problems. So if you have no constant, let's call it a guide, how do you know what and where to trim? So here we are. This is on one of our workshops. This was an incredibly overgrown foot. trimmed by, I think it was trimmed by a young lad who'd come onto our workshop. I don't think he'd ever trimmed a foot before. He found the hard waxy sole, and we asked him to trim half the foot, which wasn't easy. You can see that these bars are all overgrown and everything. And he trimmed to the hard waxy sole, brought the heels back to where they should be, and look at the difference. This foot's very short with this massive bar, and this foot is now got a larger surface area. But the biggest issue we come across in the hoof care world is something that I call personal preference trimming. Personal preference trimming. How far would you like to leave the heels above the hard sole plane, Garry?
Well, personally, I wouldn't, but let's, for argument's sake, let's say I would like to leave the heels up 3 millimeters.
Okay. Well, for argument's sake, not that I would, but for argument's sake, I'm a bit worried about leaving them at 3 millimeters, so I'm going to leave them a good 0.5 centimeter. What do you think? Would you argue with me?
No, I'm going to stick with my 3 centimeters.
So you're going to stay with 3. I'm going to go with 5. Let's illustrate this. Okay. Now, the lovely Joyce that's watching right now from France, who was impressing us all with her French language, she sent me some pictures just this last week, in fact, in the last few days. And she asked me, she's on the webinar with us right now, and she asked me if she could a question about her horse who's in his 20s, about his seemingly puny frog. So this is pre-trim for Joyce and post-trim. Now, personally, and I know Garry would agree, we think that Joyce is doing quite a good job here. Not a bad job at all. She's found the hard sole plane. She's taken away those excess bars all the way down to the hard sole plane, more on bars in a mo. And you can see the frog in the image is still looking a little bit thin. But I said to Joyce, I can't really tell the height of the heels in this photo. It looks like they are down to the hard sole plane, but I can't really tell. And this is the problem with 2D flat photos like that. So I asked her to take some more shots. And this is what she sent. And I've sort of got rid of the background to make you focus on the heels. So these are what we call caudal shots. Now, there's 2 things that I want to say here. One is that Joyce's balance is pretty much spot on. Look at that, from heel to heel and heel to toe. It's a tiny little bit, I think, of rockering, but that's probably just a little bit of technique. But other than that, she's not doing bad at all. So in other words, along what we call the volar plane, which is the entirety of the bottom of the foot, from heel towards the toe, the foot is level. But when she adjusted the photo a little, then I could see something else. What is it that I can see? We've still got everybody pretty much who started. What can I see, folks?
Brilliant.
What can I see on that foot that I couldn't see at any other photo, but now I could see? No, she hadn't taken the toe off. No, you can still see some wall there. She definitely kept the wall in. That's not a problem at all. She's got wall in it. Yeah. Bethan, Di, Darlene. Yeah. They're all going into the hoof. Frog is off center. Don't worry about the frog. Bars. She's not done too bad with the bars. Heels above the sole. Mediolateral imbalance. No, I wouldn't say so. If we go back to look over here, you can see she's pretty balanced from side to side. Like I said, we just got a bit of an issue with this being a little bit rockered, but other than that, you can see it here. Look, you can see it's rockered back a little bit, but this is the heel. This is the heel. But what's actually happened here is that you can see the wall, which is coming around to the heel, above the no, toe's not worn down. It's fine. You can still see that wall. I can see it. Can you see it, Garry? We can still see the wall
I can
there.
See it.
But what's happened is that Joyce hasn't been taking these heels down to the hard sole plane, because Joyce, because she doesn't know, and so many people do this, Joyce has been doing a little bit, and I'm going to copy that. Let's just copy that. She's been doing a little bit of personal preference trimming because she doesn't know, right? She doesn't know quite where to take it. So she thinks, well, if I leave it just a bit above the hard sole plane, maybe 5 mils. maybe a few. Where is the right height above the hard sole plane? Every human being does it differently, and we need to stop this, because the only animal that really knows where it should be is the horse, and it needs to be down to the hard sole plane. So Joyce now knows. She now knows to adjust her trim and bring those heels down to where they should be, and down means backwards. So people who think that low heels are underrun heels, when they're low, they're back, which is really important. My arm was too tired with the rasp. You did a grand job, girl. And thank you for letting us share. I very much appreciate that you let us share those. No, they were great. I love using new photos because I get bored with old photos. So we know that equus does not leave extra wall anywhere on the horse's hoof, including the bars, which is where, in fact, you know, no sole, no leaving them to fold over, none of that. So let's quickly have a look at this. So these were sent to us by another lady who's watching us right now. And these are two horses that have very overgrown bars. And I hope you can see that. They need a trim. So this is a bit excessive, but like Joyce, you can see toe is okay, but then the wall needs trimming down to the hard sole plane, and you've got these really long, long bars. Now, bars, Garry. Ugh.
Take them off, leave them on, score them out. Oh, what do we do? What do we do?
It's down to a bit of this again.
Oh, it's personal preference. I tell you what, what's the constant?
The constant is the hard sole plane, but personal preference says I'm going to leave them. What are you going to do, Garry?
I'm going to take them away, but I'm only going to take them so they match to the hard sole plane.
Now that would be a wise thing to do. Now, do you know why that would be a wise thing to do? Let me just delete that. Because if we learn, I don't know why I've got those spots there. If we learn from our amazing horses that have never been touched by human hand, and these are from a specimen in the Great Basin, where are those long bars? Where are those long bars, everybody? Can you see them? Darlene, I agree with Garry. Bars down to the hard sole plane. Thank you for sharing, Joyce. Thank you for helping me. I totally...
Thanks, darling.
Bethan says level with the hard sole plane. Yes. And why should they be level with the hard sole plane? They aren't there in this photograph. They are not overgrown in this photograph. And I'll tell you why. Because, yes, Alison Ball, worn off by stones. Because Mother Nature, folks, takes no passengers, and over their rough terrain that these horses are running on, any excess above that hoof, above that hard sole plane will just be worn off or broken off, because they don't need it. They don't need it. And that just stimulates more hoof to grow. There's nothing long on this foot. Nothing long at all. You can clearly see that the inner hoof wall and the outer hoof wall and the white line of the bar. Let's look at it. Here we go. Here's the wall. And here is the bar there. And they're quite short. All bars end about here, about halfway down the frog, every single horse. And they all have their inner hoof wall, their outer hoof wall, and their white line. They are an extension of the hoof wall. Okay, not above the hoof wall, but bars are not brakes, folks. If you've read that somewhere and someone's told you that a bar is a brake and that they need to be kept, tell me. Let me just copy that and just delete that out of the way for a minute, and then let me just put these back up. Oh, no, don't want to do that. Right? What is so breakish about this? If a horse puts his foot down, how are these are just wall. I hope you can see how much wall that is. It's not sole. You let those bars fold over onto that sole, and you have got sole underneath there that is now not being exfoliated, but you've also got something else underneath there, right? What is that something else? What else is going underneath that bar if you allow them to grow and to fold over? Muck, bacteria, says Sue Langford, dirt, says Samantha Bostock, because Mother Nature didn't want them there, didn't want them to be overgrown. They're just like, they're folding over because they're wall and they're hitting the ground and going and bending. Crap, dirt. I love it. I love it. You're so on it. And what does that mean? It means this. It means that when you take a bar away that has been there for quite some time, that is what you get. What is that, folks? What are you looking at underneath that long bar? The bar's not even down to where it should be yet. And the bar is under here, but it was covering the whole of this area here. Thrush, infection, abscesses. Abscesses, abscess, abscess, abscess. They have got to be at bar abscesses that can sometimes turn into subsolar abscesses that pop out of the back of the foot. Have got to be, haven't they, Gary? The most common abscess we see, bar none. The most common.
If there was a gold standard for the cause of hoof abscesses, bar abscesses, or the bars being left, would probably be the gold standard of why abscesses occur.
Absolutely.
Just because those bars are left and they fold over and they get all of that bacteria, dirt, muck. Look at that foot that's right in front of you right now. When that horse is traveling around, is anything gonna get stuck in there? No.
Mother Nature's not that stupid.
Mother Nature's not that silly.
But what happens with our domestic horses is they do overgrow their bars because they're either being left by the trimmer who doesn't understand, or they're just not being worn down. But that shouldn't. And do you remember those confused human beings that have gone a bit rudderless? Do you remember them? Do you remember where they were? Here they are. They're confused and they're a little bit rudderless because they're not quite sure what's going on. So they're going to just make it up as they go along. And this, my friends, is the result. The bar is Mother Nature's way of finishing off the wall at the back of the hoof. They allow the foot to be somewhat flexible towards the back, not but somewhat flexible. They have their own laminae, like the wall does, because they are wall, and they should never be left to get long and fold over the sole because they're wall, not sole. So not unless, of course, you want your horse to allow or bacteria to have a party underneath the bar. Ep says, but wild ones at Safdam. But Ep, remember, this is where humans get confused again. Where did the horse evolve? Did it evolve in a wet landscape? No, it didn't. It evolved in a dry, arid landscape. Then Maggie says, daft questions. How do you distinguish frog from bar? Okay, it's not a daft question. And I'm just going to take that away again. And I'm just going to bring this back up. I hope you're all not getting bored. You distinguish it because it's a different tissue. So this is the frog, doob, and it's kind of sort of it's tough. It feels kind of flexible, but this is hard. Bars are hard because they're wool. But sometimes what happens is the frog, all of this can become a mess because the frog starts to overlay these grooves here. These are called the collateral grooves. Excuse me. And the bars keep on going, and because the bar actually ends here, but this is accreted so much mass of stuff, it's gone on. It started to go on. And what will happen is you will end up with this bar coming around the tip of the frog, and that we call a monobar, right? Monobar shouldn't be there. It's wool and it's mixing in with sole, and it's just no, there. Put it on the back of your toilet door. Put it on your bed, on your bedroom ceiling, and stare at it for a very long time, because that is what Equus caballus should look like. Not that. Give this a trim, and then you've got something much, much better going on. All right, now back to that foot, back to that hoof again. Can you see we took this down to the hard sole plane and not beyond? We still have wall in play here. The shoe has come off, and this now is sat on here. Now, some people would have an absolute twiddly fit at looking at that, but we come along, we take the shoe off and we say, off you go, horsey, go away and do your thing. And guess what happens? It starts to absorb all that energy. It starts to flex. It starts to work properly. And it hasn't got low heels because it's still got heels, really hard ones too. These are hard, these heels. They're not too low. They're back where they should be at the hard sole plane, because guess what? We've not guessed. We didn't guess, did we, Garry? And our students don't guess.
Nope.
Because we've got a constant that Mother Nature went, hello, human beings. Don't ignore the constant. It's important. Oh dear. Oh no, stop, come back, human beings. No, oh no, they're gone. Oh no, they're ignoring the constant, Garry. Sad.
Oh no.
Right, now, so heel is far too high in the bottom right picture, right? Bottom right. Yes. Now, we haven't got time because this is not a webinar about heels. And as you've already worked out, Lindsay Setchell talks the hind legs off a donkey. But this here is an underrun heel because it's too, so people think it's a higher heel, it's a better heel. Every high heel, including Joyce's, is underrun because of the angle of growth. We haven't got time to go into that right now, but just trust me, they're underrun. If they're not backed by the hard sole plane, they're underrun. But equally, don't get too keen and go beyond the hard sole plane, because if you do that, it's going to make the horse sore. So you've got to know where the hard sole plane is. And that, my friends, is all about training. And that's why we put on our workshops, and it's why we've got our online workshops that are about to be launched in April, and we're going mad. Final thing. What is this? Tell me what you're looking at. All you lovely people that are still here. We're near the end. Anna Kemp, donkey, she says. What, both of them, Anna? What are you looking at? Donkey's the one on the right. Anybody else? Anybody else? For anybody else? What are we looking at? This is equus. Equus, good, Lydia. Horse and donkey. Donkey on right. Concavity, okay. Is the right one a donkey? Yes, it is. The right one is a donkey. Very good, very good, very good. So I've talked about the basics, haven't I? I've talked about those constants. And it, like I said, it takes training and experience to really understand the trim. And that, of course, is what we do here at HMIS. At our school, that is what we do. But finally, when you look at these photos, and the eagle-eyed amongst you, I've already spotted it, but I already put the word in your head like a minute ago because I said the word donkey. You've spotted the fact that that is a donkey. Yes, it is. The one on the right is a donkey foot. And other than having some very minor, slight morphological differences in form, with it being a little bit narrower all the way, it has this slight waist. We call it a waist at the just before the heels. You kind of come in and then they dig in and then they go out, because the donkeys like very dry ground and they like to climb. So that's part of because of where they've evolved. They are the same genus. They're in the same family, Equidae. The only thing that separates them is the very bottom of the phylogenetic tree, which is species. That is it. And because of that, and because there are only slight differences, they all have the same landmarks. Every one of them does. And so does a mule or a hinny or any hybrid equus or Przewalski's horse. And therefore, guess what? You still trim to the constant. So people who say you trim donkeys differently to horses, no, you don't. You trim to the constant. You may be taking off different things because that horse donkey might be wearing different things to the horse, but you always trim to the constant. Outer hoof wall, inner hoof wall, white line, sole, frog, bars, collateral grooves. Here we've got the inside of the horse's foot. Look at it compared to the donkey. Navicular bone, P1, P2, P3, slightly thicker, slightly bit more of a distance here. Still got heel bulbs, slightly different shape a little bit. Frog, sole, everything is there. And a lovely squidgy, Jeanette, digital cushion. You love them, don't you, Jeanette? You do. All right. All right. Did you enjoy that? We've gone on a journey with Equus Caballus through the history of the hoof right to today. There he is. Look, Garry, he's enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed it? Oh, look at them go. I'm becoming obsessed. Yes. Great explanation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good. You. Love you all. I love you all. Marvelous. All right. Well, stay tuned. Look at that. I'm going to read some of them, Garry. I think we should read them. We'll be staring at my horse's hoof tomorrow. Loved it.
Oh my God, there's so many.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming and listening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're not as bad as everybody makes us out to be on Facebook, you know. You just got to get to know us.
We're really nice people, really.
We're really, and all we want to do is make people think and really understand. All right. So what I want you to do is stay tuned to us. The best Zoom ever. Really want more. Thank you ever so much. Lovely folk who are always willing to help. We are. Thank you, Bethan. Was she talking about herself then? I think she was talking about herself. I'm sure she was talking about herself. Right. If you liked this content, and I know you did, because you're all saying you liked it, there's no even point me saying give us a thumbs up because you've already liked it. We've got more free webinars planned for you. Free. You just head over to the school website. Here it is. And you put your name down for some of these free ones. So the next one we've got coming up is on the Sunday, the 9th of April, how to recognize and prevent laminitis. And I'm going to get out my reveal. Oh, you're going to love it. What I've got coming up for the laminitis one. Oh, that's going to blow.
If you thought this one was good, you can't. It's going to blow your mind.
Blow your mind. How important is it to implement a species-specific diet? Well, that's going to be controversial, isn't it? That's on the 23rd of April. How to prevent navicular in your horse without metal shoes. That's on the 14th of May. We've got the gut coming up. I think we've got one more. I can't remember. So go and register free. Exactly how you did on this webinar. Right now, if you liked this and you love tuning in and you love learning from home, because it's important that we all know as owners to know as much as we can about the foot, then as promised, right back at the beginning, I said that I was going to say something at the end. So those of you who stuck with us, and there's quite a lot of you stuck it right to the end, we've got a great series we've just released on our school platform, and it's called the Hoof Uncovered series, right? It's over 11 hours of on-demand video, full lifetime access. You can get onto it with your mobile, your desktop, your laptop, any device at all. It's in 2 series. Series 1 covers the white line, the hoof wall, the sole, the bars. I'm taking you on a deep dive, even deeper than we've done today. Part 2 or series 2 is the lamina, the bones, the navicular bone. We talk about navicular, the DDFT, hoof landings, very controversial, and of course the natural trim. And those are currently on our website for $59.99, but not to you, my friends, because you have been tuning in and listened to us yada all night long. So we are giving you, just you people that have been on this webinar, £20 off, or whatever that is in your, I don't know, whatever that is in your currency. You're having 20 quid off, 20 big squiddly quids off that $59.99 off both of them, not just the one. We're giving you, so that's £40 off the whole package, which Garry thinks is amazing, don't you, Garry? Look at you, there you are. It's amazing. So what do you do? It's fine. What you do is you head over to the school website, you find Hoof Uncovered, you find the series, there it is, that's the Hoof Uncovered page. It tells you all about it before you actually dive in. It shows you all the thing here, and they're pre-recorded webinars, a bit like this, but they're private ones, and we go into deep dive. So just head over there and use this code, folks. Hoof Uncover 20. Take a screenshot right now. Take a screenshot, write it down, because you're not going to see it again. I will not put this up on the website. It is Hoof Uncover 20. And that gets your £20 off. And when you go to the website, it geolocates, it knows what country you're in. So it'll come up in your currency, and the code will come up in your currency as well. But wait. As if that wasn't enough, guess what else we're going to give you? Yes, we're going to give you 2 ebooks as well. An 8-chapter book, How to Successfully Go Barefoot with Your Horse, written by moi, and a 5-chapter ebook, Understanding Your Horse's Hoof, also written by moi. And that is in collaboration with the Barefoot Horse magazine. Okay, it covers the essentials for both barefoot horse owners and those who are wanting to go barefoot. Phew. All for $39.99. Wow. There's your code. Look at it. Stare at it. Get over to that website and buy it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want me to show you the code again? Boom. Hoof Uncover 20. Put it in your head, because it's gone. When it's gone, it's gone. It's gone, it's gone, it's gone. Right, there we are. Many thanks. We love you all. And we're going to stop sharing now. So we're going to bring you back on the screen. Yeah.
There's one question we didn't answer. We're going to have to do it quickly.
Go on.
I forgot the lady's name. We've got to talk very briefly about the Mustang roll. It's very important. Shall I do that?
Go on then.
Okay. So the Mustang roll, you know, when you saw that picture where that nice water line that was coming down from the front of the foot, and that was the main part that was touching the ground. So you ended up having the frog, then you had that little arch where the sole was, and then you've got the sole that merges into that water line, which is the inner hoof wall. That's what you want your horse to be landing on. So when we put the Mustang roll on, it's a nice pebble finish, but that water line stays in contact with the ground.
I'm trying to find it for you, Garry.
Okay, thanks. So yes, so you don't want a sharp edge. What you want is a nice rounded edge. Right, so this water line, I'm pointing to the screen. I know you can't see me pointing to the screen, but it helps me to
here.
Here.
Oh,
that's brilliant. Thanks, Lindsay. So that's the water line. Now, that water line is only about 1 or 2 millimeters thick, depending on the horse. So it's not very thick at all. But that's the bit the horse needs to be landing on. And then we have this nice pebble finish coming out into the outer hoof wall. And that is the Mustang roll. So that's what makes up the Mustang roll.
And people,
it's actually very simple, but it's not easy to put that nice rounded edge on. That takes a little bit of practice.
It's training, and too many people rasp down from the top like that.
They do.
We didn't get this shape here by rasping. You look at your horse's feet before you trim them. They'll have a roll on it. They will, because horses just naturally do that. And you look at what's touching the ground. It's tiny. And even when the horse has got a distorted hoof, we still follow constants. But that's in the laminitis webinar. We didn't have time to obviously go through that. So there it is. So that's that Mustang roll. So you can see it's not a big fat roll. We haven't just taken the rasp and gone down this way. Remember, this was one of our new students who did this, and I still applaud them. I think they did a blooming good job, right? But here is what's on the ground. Well done for picking that up, Garry. Okay, cool.
No problem.
Last 2 minutes and then we're off. So tell us any questions you have quickly while you've got us live. I do Mustang rolls on my horse. It's very good. That was amazing. Thank you. They haven't got any more questions. Why waterline? Wow, it's a good question, really. Mainly because they recognized that it holds quite a bit of moisture, the horse's foot, and moisture will track outwards, but also it holds it inwards. And they recognise that area there was an area that did hold quite a bit of moisture. It's quite flexible, but it's incredibly strong. Where do I find the webinar on the laminitis trim? Go to our website, schoolhmi.com. Go there and you will find under webinars, click on webinars and scroll down and you'll see all the webinars. You click on it to register. It takes you to a Zoom page and then you register. And if you're looking for the Hoof Uncovered, which I know all of you are, you just have to go to courses and it will be under courses. Is it the waterline, the white line? No. Now, Marty.
No.
We've confused you, and that's because the whole world is confused. The white bit, really white part of that wall, inner hoof wall, waterline. The bit that's mucky, right on the very inside between the sole and the wall,
is the white line.
Is the white line.
But it's not white.
I'm sorry.
I know, it's confusing.
I'm sorry.
We didn't make the rules.
No, I didn't make those rules.
We didn't make the rules.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Chanel says palmar angle. Oh, yes. That'll be coming up in the navicular webinar, all about palmar and plantar angles. Is it possible to save this so that I can look at it again so my slow mind can absorb more? Well, we're sending you the link. So it's on demand. So I think you'll be able to watch it for quite a while until we take it off demand, I think. So, yeah. But that code, folks, is not going to be available forever and ever. It's really only going to be available. It depends how kind I feel to all of you, really, quite frankly. Probably around about maybe 48 hours, something like that. And then I'm going to take it off. Because it's 11 hours of me going on and on and on. Is the Hoof Uncovered the same as the one on Barefoot Live? Yes, it is. So if you are part of Barefoot Live, folks, there we've tweaked it slightly, but yes, it is. So you have two choices. Go and buy the Hoof Uncovered and have it all there in a player, each part, one after the other, and the ebooks, or join Barefoot Live and you'll find it in there. And Barefoot Live is, you can pay annually for Barefoot Live. I think it's about 70 quid a year, something like that. So thank you very much. Well done. Brilliant. Marvellous. Nice image on your website of the white line and waterline. Yes. Thank you, Sue. Lovely. Do you know something, Garry?
I've got a question. I've got a question here. A lady, Regina, says, can we trim the overgrown bar in one trim? Yes, as long as you know where the hard sole plane is. You can trim it all the way down to the hard sole plane in one go. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're going to do it,
perfect.
Take before and after pictures. It's really interesting.
Can Jon ever do this webinar again? Are you saying, can you ever do this webinar again? Is that what you're saying? Sorry. Yes. No. Oh, maybe one day. Maybe I'll do this webinar again.
Maybe one day.
Do you know something? I'm sat here and I'm watching people register for this webinar still. We had 500 and nearly 570 people have registered so they can get it on demand, and it's still coming in. Brilliant. What causes quarter cracks? Diet management. And
diet management.
Stresses where there shouldn't be.
Trim. Yeah.
Those quarters are passive. They're meant to be. There you go, my lovely people. We're going to go now. So happy to have met you guys. I'm so happy to have met you too, Shirley Baines. Diane Spear, thank you. Jane Savage, off now. So are we. And I've got Asha biting at the bit because she's hungry. So we're going to go and have dinner now. Some of you are having breakfast. Some of you are having lunch. Either. I haven't had a Mother's Day card yet. I'm a bit annoyed by that. My children obviously don't.
She's going to have to do you an E1.
Are you doing a webinar on diet and management? Yes, Sally Little. Go to the website, and find it and register. Yes, we are. And it's free. So off you go. But of course, if you really want to learn more about the horse's hoof, then you have to come and do the online workshop with us if you're all over the world. And that's amazing. Amazing. That's in 3 parts. Anyway, we're off. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We love you all. Thank you for joining us. It's been fab. I've enjoyed it. I've talked too much. Last words, Garry.
See you next time.
Bye. Love you
all.
Go to the website. See you now.
Go to the
Bye.
website. Take a look.